Hello and welcome. This is the short introduction of Dead Man's Footsteps, the fourth book in the Roy Gray series. Let's see what the basics are about. Dead Man's Footsteps is about Roy Wilson, a failed businessman, going to America, to New York City, to try to borrow some money from a business pal he's got, and it's a last chance to help him revive his business attempts that Ronnie doesn't seem to be very good at. As he gets to the World Trade Center, 9/11 hits, and this gives him an opportunity that he can write off all his debt, change his identity, and disappear, and reinvent himself in a different part of the world. And that's what he's gonna do. Meanwhile, in the city of Brighton, Abby, a 20-something-year-old woman, is being stalked, being followed, and she thinks it's her crazy ex-boyfriend who she's hiding away from because she believes that the only place is Brighton where the boyfriend won't come after her. We'll see about that. And Superintendent Roy Grace gets a phone call to attend a scene where a skeletal remain of somebody had been found in the storm drain under the Brighton railway station. Going to the scene, Roy drags Branson with him, and he's initially really worried because he feels that it might be Sandy, his long missing wife, Roy's missing wife. But as we find out a bit later, it is not. It's Wilson's ex-wife. And Wilson is believed to be dead since 9/11 in New York. As the investigation starts to roll, clues come in, and the Australian police contact the Brighton officers and provides them with some information about a dead British woman who seems to be the second wife of Ron Wilson. This book uses multiple timelines to tell the story. We have the past, 2001, and we follow how Ronnie Wilson switches his identity and comes up with the master plan to leave his past behind, his mounting debts, and start it all over again in a different country. Then, of course, we have present day, where we see how the investigation into the skeletal remains found under the Brighton train station goes. And of course Abby, who's being stalked by her ex-boyfriend apparently. So she thinks. We'll find out from the deep dive if that is the case. Just before the call comes in about the skeletal remains, we catch Roy writing court files and preparing the court case and the detailed investigation reports about Carl Venner, who we met in Looking Good Dead, and Norman Jacks, of course, who just wasn't dead enough. So these pending cases, court cases, are ongoing, as I mentioned in earlier shorter videos, that these links are found in most of the books, or many of them anyway. So we can see that Roy is preparing. There are new developments regarding Cassian. We kind of forgotten about him in the last book, but after the taxi accident in Looking Good Dad, well, he obviously was on the mend, and from Monday he's going to start work in the same rank as Roy Grace, and we'll find how that will work out. The team who will investigate this case, of course, bears with the usual characters. By now we get to know them. Of course, we have Glenn Branson, Norman Potting, the old sweat. We have Emma J. Baltwood back from hospital. She's back on the team. And we have Nick Nicol. He's got a newborn at home, so he's always tired, and through him we can see how difficult it is to be up basically 24/7, either working, investigating, being a detective, or in his home life, where the baby's crying just keeps everyone awake all day. And we have Bella Moy. She's here, of course, with her Maltesers. She's always snacking on. And, well, Cassian Pugh is a semi-new character, but like I said, you will have to check out the deep dive video to learn about him, because that would venture into spoiler territory if I spoke about his doings. As for the CSI and pathology, well, the pathologist in this book is Phaser Theobald, the slow guy, and Cleo Morley, and a couple of other characters we get to know in the books before, but I didn't really talk about them either in the deep dive videos, because they're really side characters. But at one point I will make a video to sum up all the characters we barely mentioned. I think that will be a good idea. Again, no rush about it. It will come at one point. Also in this book we will find Roy traveling to the United States, and we get to know that he's been working with American police before, and he's got few pals there, police pals. And in this book, one is Dennis Baker and the other's Pat Lynch. About his friends at the police, in later books I'll mention some extra info on this that I think can be found interesting. Anyhow, so we see Roy traveling far and wide, and Norman Potting and Nick Nicol will travel as well. That's a good thing. But hey, no spoilers here. Along this timeline switching and globe-trotting investigation, we'll of course be learning about Brighton's villains as well. We get to meet a few retired, semi-retired people who are known to police and to Roy Grace, and I've no doubt that in one form or another they exist in real life. I mean, knowing Peter James's research and knowledge about the city, I'm sure they are based on real people, of course given different names probably. As for the overall tone of the book, it is not as grumpy as the couple of books before were. It is playing on and with a wider spectrum. Like I said, globe-trotting, characters travel in this book. We get to visit different polices, different countries, and some additional cool characters, of course. We get to know a bit about stamps. Could be like these, they ain't very common, signed by Peter James too. Anyway. And some of the hidden parts of Brighton, like straight away the storm drain, where the skeletal body is found, that's underneath Brighton Station, where in real life we can find lots of old Victorian pieces like toilets, tunnels. It's all part of Brighton's history, and it's nice to visit these, if in a fictional form in the book, but again these are based on the real places, and as the style of Peter James we learn some historical information about some parts of Brighton's forgotten past. Roy's and Cleo's relationship is developing nicely, and they even got to have a dog, Humphrey. So the dog will become part of the family too. Also, like I mentioned, we learn about Nick Nicol having a child and how it's bearing down on his life. And Glenn Branson and Ori, well, their relationship is not improving too well, even though he seemingly had moved back from Roy's place to Ori's place, I mean their house. But things don't really work out very well. But again, in the long video we'll fill it out a bit more, and let that be enough of Graham Branson's rocky relationship with his wife. And there's some final thoughts about the basics of this particular book. This is still rather heavy on police procedural things and details, which will be toned down over the books. I would say after 10th, 11th book, I wanted to cover these books and put on YouTube, is just to make sure that among so many authors we have YouTube videos about, I have not found that many of Peter James, despite being a bestseller author, and I figured, yes, YouTube should have a segment for Peter James. So one way or the other, I'm trying to cover the Roy Gray series for sure, as last year just marked 20 years of Roy Grace, and essentially just to make sure that Peter James and a bit of Brighton is on YouTube for thriller, crime lovers and book lovers. So yeah, hopefully we're having some fun, and hopefully some of you will get to reread these books if you have. If you haven't, you might want to read them because of these videos. Otherwise, hopefully it just doesn't bother you too much. So until you watch the deep dive video, I think that's enough covering the basics of Dead Man's Footsteps. Signing off now.